body. Every single one of us. Every single one of us, right? We have the power when it comes to the energy stored in our body. We have the power to power an industrialized city for seconds, right? An industrialized city meaning hundreds of thousands of people, just one individual, right? You watching this video or me, if every single piece of energy in our body was boiled down, right? We could literally power up an entire city. And you can look this up, right? I'm not some, I'm not some, mentally insane guy over here trying to, spur some bullshit, right? This is actually true, but how is this relevant to you, right? How is this relevant to you? Well, first of all, the world is founded on energy, frequency, and vibrations, right? But I want you to understand how this relates to addiction as someone who's beaten multiple addictions, video game addictions. I used to play professional Fortnite. I was the best Fortnite player in my country when I was 13 years old. Someone who's beaten multiple eating disorders, someone who struggled with obesity, someone who struggled with then going to the other side of the spectrum and, even making myself throw up, right? In an attempt to try to lose weight and making all of these mistakes, right? Throughout the years as just a 14, 15-year-old kid, right? Doing all these detrimental things to myself, right? I slowly started to break free, but that's because I had enough pain of being in that situation that I literally didn't have a choice, right? The pain of changing outweighed the pain of staying the same. Or sorry, it's the other way around. The pain of staying the same outweighed the pain of changing or the discomfort of changing. So I decided to change, but for the longest time, I had one foot in and one foot out. And that's the whole reason that I'm so passionate about getting out here, right? I've lived an insanely unique life and a life story, and I'm so blessed that I've built and developed this perspective. Of course, it's all been thanks to God's guidance, right? I haven't done anything, right? And even when people, tell me, "Oh, wow, you've had such an impressive transformation, right, in the last year." I've built 25 pounds of muscle and I've lost 30 pounds of fat as well, just within the same year. I was going to the gym twice a day, every single day, just pushing it extreme, right? And, people would tell me, right, "Oh, wow, such an impressive transformation, you're so, wow, so impressive," right? But my ego, right? My ego would realize and would want to accept that compliment, but I would always have to consciously know and remind myself that I wasn't given anything. Sorry, I didn't do anything, right? God blessed me with every single thing that I have in my life, everything from my struggle to the desire that He instilled in me to change to the result, and even right now to the vision and the perspective and just the ability to even articulate myself in this way. God gave me everything, right? But what I want you to understand is because you have so much energy in you, you have so much potential in you, right? When you are addicted to things, and this is someone, I'm going to talk a little bit more about my story too, right? I was addicted to going out to lust. I've been addicted to weed, especially. Weed was the biggest thing that I've been addicted to, right? It took me about 4 years to be able to finally break free from that addiction, right? But we all know that we have so much potential stored in ourselves, right? We just have to be reminded of it. As human beings, we know, right, the amount of impact that we can have on the world. We know how truly powerful we are as human beings, but when you're dependent on something external to fill that void inside of you that God has placed so you can find Him, right? When you fill that void that's supposed to lead you towards God with external things that are categorized as sins, right? That's why they're categorized as sin. But when you fill yourself and you try and fill this void with external things, you give all of your power as a human being that has been created with a piece of God, right? You've been created by God, but as a human being, knowing how powerful you are truly deep down, maybe not consciously, maybe not, you don't remind yourself enough how powerful you are, but when you give your power up to this external thing, right? Let's say, for example, weed. Of course that it's going to feel so difficult, right? Of course it's going to trap you so much because you're so powerful. And if you're dependent on the thing, then wow, it must be so powerful. But I want you to realize, and I want you to realize, there is nothing that you can't accomplish, right? And I'm not just saying that. It's only about what you associate with the feeling, right? When I first initially, right, when I was stuck to weed, I would always associate, and I would even justify it to my family. My mom, when she found out, she was heartbroken, right? But I would always justify it, even though I would do it after I told my mom that I wouldn't do it, right? I would always justify it to myself. Oh wow, I work so hard, go to the gym twice a day, I work 8 hours, right? I'm literally torturing myself. Obviously I do it all, willingly, but I would say I work so hard. I need to smoke weed. It's going to help me sleep. I can't sleep otherwise, right? I would always say, hey, it's harmless, right? It's green. It's naturally grown, right? That's why it's the devil's lettuce. But, it's naturally grown, right? It's never killed anyone. No one's ever been physically addicted to weed. I'd always justify it in these ways, and those are the addictions that are the hardest to break from because of how easily justifiable they are and how widely integrated they are into society. Those are the most difficult and detrimental ones because everyone around you is doing them, right? I'd say, as someone that goes to a large state school, about 90% of students here, easily I can say smoke weed. And me, I was at a point where I would literally wake up, I'd take at least 10 bowls every day, 10 bowls of weed, at least. And it wouldn't just be weed, it'd also be tobacco because I was a degenerate. But the hardest ones, right? The most demonic addictions, right? If you have half a brain, you know to not do heroin, right? You know to not do fucking crystal meth, right? But even something like fast food, which is an addiction, right? With how disgusting things like McDonald's are, right? When they literally put in fucking toxic, literal poison to fry the fries, literal rat poison they put in the fucking oil. You can look this up. I'm pretty sure it's Brian Johnson, right? The guy that's like super obsessed with health and stuff like that. He made a video on McDonald's and he literally exposed that they use fucking rat poison in the fucking um McDonald's like fry, what the fry, whatever. But literally all of these things that play on your dopaminergic system, right? Everything from, fast food and even sports gambling, right? Which is something that, that's a whole another topic for another video, right? That is truly, right, the most, I think, personally, one of the most detrimental things in society overall, right? Just because of how they're justifying it. And, oh, wow, it's part of being a quote unquote man now, right? You're not one of the boys if you don't, lay down parlays. You're not one of the boys, right? You're not even cool, right? If you don't fucking make sports bets, right? If you don't follow sports enough, but it's so predatory. Kids, right? From 5 years old, they start watching the NFL and the NBA, right? With their dad, with their family, and they see these ads about sports gambling, right? Think of how sad that is, right? A kid 5 years old could literally know what the fuck DraftKings is. They probably do. And as they grow up, right? As they're more involved in sports, as they see their favorite players in the ads, right? And even the way the ads are shaped, right? It's like they're trying to showcase people in just, waiting in line on a coffee shop, right? Or like, hanging out with their friends and just placing these ads, right? It's brainwashing little children into thinking that gambling is okay. How disgusting is that? And you think an institution or not even institution, right? I hate this word, right? I don't even, I'm gonna say like the matrix, right? It's not, obviously I hate that fucking word, just because a lot of like losers online try and use that, right? But like whatever, this institution, right? This higher power, right? Or society overall, let's just say the power structures in society, whatever. And I'm not trying to be like Jaden Smith, like, oh, let's talk about the political and economic state of the world right now. But like, dude, there are there are literal, right, people dying from putting money into the pockets of the already insanely wealthy people, right? And even if you look at, the owner of McDonald's and how, all these dispensaries are just being so normalized, right? You see how they intertwine and play with each other so much, right? When you get high, you're going to want to order fast food, right? When you get high, your willpower is going to go, it's going to get lower. When you get drunk, you're going to want to indulge in the other one, right? And they understand this. They understand how to play on your willpower. They understand how to keep you weak, because that's the only way they can keep in power, if they can keep you weak and keep you without knowing your true potential. That's the only way. You have so much energy. You have so much power. If every single person were to be awakened, if every single person were to be authentic and say, fuck everything, I'm going to be myself, then there would be no one to control. And I've realized this, right? But the collective consciousness and the collective energy of the consciousness is so low. And I've realized that the more that I've become authentic, the more that I've, spent more time with myself and building myself, reading, doing meditation, going to the gym, exercising, and, eating clean, right? The more that, I've been exercising, where my sexual energy goes, right? Who I entertain myself with, the more that I've increased my energy, the more that I've realized that these low vibration people, right? They can't handle someone that is authentic, right? They can't handle someone who wants to make an impact on the world and who's willing to sacrifice the things that they're not able to, right? And that's why all that I do when people try and hate on me in real life, or, when I can even just tell from their looks, right? I've never been negative to anyone. I've never, you know, ever hurt anyone. The only thing about me is that I'm extremely confident and I don't care. And I'm extremely authentic. But when you're authentic and you can say fuck you to the world, and you can say you're not going to stand for anything anyone tells you to do, or the way that society wants you to develop into and behave and act, right? If you can have the backbone and the spine and the intestinal fortitude to say, no, fuck this, I'm going to do my own thing, right? You'll see every single person in your life change and treat you differently, right? But that's how it's supposed to be. That's a way where God is removing all of the toxic and all of the unnecessary unnecessary energy in your life that's been keeping you stuck, right? Because most people, they don't deserve your energy. They don't. This is something that I keep struggling with, right? And when I get on here, I'm not trying to act like a saint, right? I fall into all of these, the urges of desires every single day, right? I just quit nicotine and it's so hard for me. Like, I feel like my brain is just like a fucking sponge. Like, it's so hard, right? It's hard for me. But the only thing that I can do is keep myself rooted in just focusing all of my energy into just helping people. Like, that's all that I want to do. That's all that I care about. Like, going from morbidly obese and beating so many addictions, I figured out what works. I have. It's like now, having friends that literally for the last 4 years who've just gotten older but never grown up, right? And the way that I see society shifting, right? With all of the normalization of everything that I mentioned, whether it's weed, whether it's fast food, whether it's, sports gambling, or even the hard, addictions that are just being promoted more and more and more, and just like seeing everyone lose their willpower and their potential, it hurts me. It hurts me because freedom is free, right? Freedom is completely free, but it's going to cost you everything. It's going to cost you everything and everyone and every desire, right? And, obviously you're not going to have a 180 change, but it's time to get on the right path. The only way that you can do that is awareness. That's the only thing that I care about. So I appreciate you guys. I think we're all so blessed to be living, a life like this. And Yeah. Take care.